What's up, guys? It's Eric from Rare Candy, and we're coming at you today with another deck profile. This time we're taking a look at Delphox BREAK. We did a battle video with it against Night March 2, so if you haven't seen that, be sure to check it out if you want to see how this works in action. But yeah, Delphox BREAK is one of the new break cards that we got from Fates Collide. So we're taking this time to kind of look at that and revisit the old XY Delphox as well and see if we can make something good out of this. So since this is a deck based around Delphox, we are going to run 4 Fennekin. This is the new one from Fates Collide. It's got 60 hit points, and also the attack tail whip is kind of useful because you can flip a coin. If heads, your opponent can't attack on the next turn. So that's good for one of these low HP basics, because you sometimes need to buy an extra turn just to get set up with a deck like this. So that's how we're playing that one. And we're playing 2 of the middle stage evolution breaks in. And, because we still need to get into the stage 2 without rare candy if we get item locked. So we play 2 of those. And I think this one is the one to play just because it has the attack Destructive Flame. This 20, and you can flip a coin if heads, discard an energy on the defending Pokemon. So that can be really big, especially against decks like Night March or Vespiquen Vileplume that only run 4 DCE total in their deck. So that's why we're playing that one. And so next up we have our Delphoxes. Like I said, we're actually playing the XY Delphox in addition to the new one. If you guys aren't familiar with it, this one from XY has the ability Mystical Fire. So once during your turn before you attack, you can draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. So we're all very familiar with Shaymin EX and why that's such a good ability. So to be able to do that every turn is really, really good. So, and also because we're playing this, it means we are less reliant on Shaymin and are giving up less cheap, easy prizes. So it's a really good card to have in here. And so I guess the main attacker, you could say, would be the new Delphox from Fates Collide. It doesn't have the cool ability, but its second attack, Psystorm, is pretty interesting. It does 20 damage times the number of energy on both players' fields. So we're going to try to get a bunch of energy onto this Delphox, and then any energy that our opponent has on their field will also add to the attack. So depending on the deck you go against, you can hit for some really, really big numbers, especially against decks like maybe like Yveltal or Metal variants that typically have a lot of energy spread out on their board at any given time. So, and even the XY Delphox, the attack isn't too bad. It's Blaze Ball. It's just like Keldeo EX's attack Secret Sword. It does 50 plus each fire energy attached instead of water. So yeah, even the XY Delphox in some instances can be a more efficient attacker than the new one. So I like the split. That way it gives you some flexibility. And I definitely wouldn't play this deck without the XY one. It really, I think it really adds a lot to this. But like I said, we are playing the breaks as well. So we're playing 2 breaks. It bumps Delphox's hit points all the way up to 180, which is pretty crazy for just a non-EX attacker. But it has the cool attack Flare Witch. So once during your turn before you attack, you can search your deck for a fire energy and attach it to one of your Pokemon. So that's kind of handy. You can attach a DCE for turn to Delphox and then use Flare Witch to power it up all in one turn. Or you can also use Blacksmith, which we run in this deck as well. So that's the very, very thick Delphox break line, but we still do need some sort of secondary attacker. And we're opting to play a 1/1 Zoroark. And it's kind of a random inclusion, it probably seems, but Zoroark's good because it can attack for just a single DCE. That's a really big thing. If you run an alternate attacker, you probably should get one who attacks more efficiently than both of the Delphoxes do. So, and more importantly, this helps really a lot against Trevenant. Trevenant is a really tough matchup for this type of deck. But luckily, Zoroark can use his ability Stand In and Mind Jack to knock out Trevenants left and right. Another inclusion you could potentially opt for is the Combat Blaze Entei, back from, I believe it was Ancient Origins. So test both of those out. I mean, these lists definitely aren't final. These are our first drafts of this Delphox BREAK type of deck, so I'm sure there's a lot of things you could change to fit what you want to do instead. But anyways, I like this so far. We don't really play any switching cards, so I like being able to stand in without relying on switching cards. So then we also have one Jirachi. Not gonna lie, Night March and Vespiquen Vileplume are both really big problems for this deck because they just attack so quickly for just single attachments, and whereas this deck needs 2 or 3 manual attachments before you really get going. So Jirachi can be good to slow them down because it has the attack Stardust, 10 damage, discards a special energy on the defending Pokemon, and it makes Jirachi immune to basically anything they try to do to it. So it's a really good card. I would even consider going up to 2 of these, to be honest. Really good to help even the playing field against decks like Night March. So, and then for our Pokemon line, just to round it out, we're gonna play one Shaymin EX. The Delphox has the ability Mystical Fire, but this deck is a little slower, so Shaymin is still good in the first, couple turns of the game when you're actually trying to get set up to use Delphox's attack or ability. So one Shaymin's fine. I probably wouldn't go higher than that though, just because one thing that's nice about this deck is you have a 180 hit point non-EX attacker, so we're trying to force our opponent to take only one prize at a time. Okay, so that's it for the Pokemon. As far as the trainer cards go, or supporters, we're playing 2 Professor Sycamore. We're essentially playing a stage 3, so more often than not, you're going to have different pieces of the evolution line in hand at a given time. So I don't really like 4 Sycamore in this type of deck, but it's still the best draw supporter we have. So 2 is definitely fine. And to offset the lack of Sycamore, we're playing 4N. This is a card that just came back into the format with Fates Collide. I'm really happy to see it back. It gives slower decks like this actually a chance in the format against some of these really fast decks like Night March and Vespiquen that we've been talking about. So 4N's really good, and what's nice about it too is even in the late game, if you N yourself down to a low hand size, you can still draw out of it with the Delphox on the board. So I love maxing out N in this list. I mean, I guess maybe you could go lower, but so far I really prefer a high count of N as opposed to a high count of Sycamore. So then we play 2 Blacksmith. It's just another way to help get energy on the field pretty quickly to do more damage with our Delphox. And it allows you to, instead of having to attach 3 times manually, you can just attach for turn once and Blacksmith, or just, Flare Witch and Blacksmith. So I like this in this deck. We're playing 1 Wally. In a deck like this, it's really hard to get up to that break evolution. So there's certain times when you can, maybe on the second turn of the game, rare candy into a Delphox, and then immediately Wally and get out your break. So I think Wally is a great inclusion. It really helps you keep streaming your breaks throughout the course of the game. And we also play 1 Lysandre. Lysandre is self-explanatory. You bring up your opponent's Pokemon, take knockouts, and then we also play 1 Hex Maniac. Another deck that's really going to give this a lot of issues, I think, is Greninja. And, not only can they pick off all of your low HP basics and stuff, but, they also hit you for weakness as well. So by playing Hex, you can potentially buy a few turns where they can't use Water Shuriken to take knockouts. So really good card. And also, you can play Hex to get out of things like Item Lock to let you play Rare Candy and get into your Delphoxes. Okay, and so just rounding out the supporters and going into our item cards, we're playing 4 Versus Seeker, just maxing it out to give us the most amount of options. Okay, so then we're also playing 4 Ultra Ball, maxing that out. Just, the best search card in the game, lets you search your deck for any Pokemon if you discard 2 cards. And then we're also playing 2 Level Ball. So it's really important to get multiple Fennekins on the board at a time. So I like playing 2 Level Ball. That just kind of helps ensure that we have at least 1 extra one in case one gets knocked out. So then we play 4 Trainer's Mail. Just another really good consistency card, just helping us draw into what we want at the right time. look at the top 4 cards of your deck and you pick a trainer card. So pretty self-explanatory why it's good. Next up, for rare candy. You know, Delphox is the main attacker, and it's really not efficient to just evolve through breaks in every turn. Ideally, you want a rare candy. That way you can skip the middle evolution and go straight for the Delphox. Okay, so then we have 1 Sacred Ash. This lets us get back our Delphox line. Some people might opt to play Super Odd, but you know, 1 Delphox break line itself is like 4 Pokemon if you count the stage 1. So I don't really see Super Odd doing much for you, to be honest. And we play Blacksmith, so we can recycle our energies. So I think Sacred Ash is better if you're just going to run one over the other. And then for our stadium cards, we're playing 2 Scorched Earth. So it just kind of helps us get set up. You can discard a fire to draw 2 cards. And we need some non-supporter based draw because ideally we want to Blacksmith every turn if possible. So if we can Blacksmith, use things like Scorched Earth and Mystical Fire to draw our cards every turn, we'll be in good shape. Okay, yeah, so that's it for the trainer cards. And then for our energies, we have 3 double colorless. It's kind of an odd count. A lot of people run maybe like 4 or 2, but 3 seems like a good count because if you're attacking with the newer Delphox, you want to have a DCE preferably. So it seems good. Also, Zoroark can attack with Mind Jack for just a DCE. But then the regular Delphox potentially can still use it, but I think generally speaking, you're going to use DC mainly for the new Delphox and Zoroark. So you can play around with this count. I don't think 4 is best, but I don't like 2 because I felt like I wasn't drawing into it enough. So 3 for at the moment seems okay. Okay, so then we have 3, 6, 9 fire energy. So it's a good bit of energy, but I mean, this deck can really plow through energy, and I've had problems running out in a game. To be honest, I'm thinking about dropping a fire energy for a Super Odd because, like we said, 1 Sacred Ash really only gets back 1 Delphox break evolution line, but if you play Super Odd as well, you can get a couple extra pieces and maybe some energy as well. So that's what I might try next. If I'm gonna continue testing this, I'll probably change this to a Super Odd. But you definitely do need a lot of energy in this deck because you want as much of it on the board at one time as possible. But yeah, guys, so that's the deck. You know, there's not really a standard list for this type of deck yet. No one's, I think, really perfected this Delphox break thing. So there's probably a lot of things we can change. This is just our first attempt at it, but I kind of like the direction of it. I like playing non-EX decks. Just giving up 1 prize and, you know, having 180 hit points is pretty great. It's just, it's a bit of a slower deck. That's the only problem right now. But I like the concept. I think it's worth exploring. Let me know in the comments below what you think. There might be some cards, like I said, that you think are bad. But yeah, guys, feel free to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys for the next one, okay?